If you're a permanent makeup artist who has a lot of mature clients who want the machine hair stroke technique for their brows from you, this video is for you, because when it comes to needles, you may have been taught to use a thin needle for your mature skin, because it makes sense, right? You've got thin, mature, sensitive skin, and so you should use a thin needle to reduce that trauma. However, in my years of working, I've discovered that actually that's not that helpful, that education, using a thin needle. So in this video, I'm going to give you my alternative that I've been using recently, which I think delivers much better results for mature clients using these particular needles. So let's get into it. For mature clients, I believe the machine hair stroke technique in a realism style is the best treatment for them, because often these ladies, they don't have a lot of their own natural hair left and they don't tend to wear a lot of makeup, so they just want to have some nice natural looking eyebrows back. And so the realism technique is a really nice one for them. However, when we're working with mature skin, it can be challenging because the skin has lost its collagen, so it's much thinner, it's more delicate, it can traumatize more quickly. So when we're performing the hair stroke technique, it can bleed a lot during the treatment. Now, I was taught, and I'm sure you have been taught, and I can still see a lot of people teaching this way, is that when you're working with mature skin, you need to use a thin needle. The theory makes sense. You've got thin skin, you should use thin needle to reduce the trauma. However, in my years of working on mature skin, hundreds of mature skin ladies, I don't actually find that to be the most effective way to do hair strokes. I actually spin it on its head and go the opposite way and use a thicker needle or configurations of needles, so flats or magnums. Let me explain why. When I use a thin needle on thin skin, like a 1 round liner, 0.25 long taper, I find that needle goes straight through the skin because the skin is so paper thin and the needle is so fine that it cuts straight through the skin. There's no resistance, so it's like a really sharp knife going straight in, and so we can go too deep too quickly, and that's when the skin starts to bleed. And also with thin needles, it makes it hard to implant the pigment quickly, because not enough pigment can travel down that super fine needle. So not only are you cutting too deep because it's a very sharp needle, but you're not able to implant the pigment very quickly. And so you're having to go over the same pass multiple times, causing way more trauma and bruising and bleeding because you can't get the pigment in. So what I started doing is using a thicker needle. So I started with a 1 round liner, so I bumped it up to 0.30, 0.35. And because the needle is thicker, we can implant the pigment quicker. So that was a good solution at first. But I still had the problem of the needle going into the skin too easily because, again, the skin's still thin. So I've sped up the amount of time, the time that the pigment can enter. That's good. But now I need to get around the problem of the penetration happening too quickly. So that's when we pull out our needle configuration. So a flat or a magnum. So a flat would be like a 4 flat. And a magnum would be the needles are a little bit more spread wide. But either way, it's a line of needles touching the skin this way. Now, because of the increased surface area of the needle configuration, that needle can't penetrate the skin as quickly as 1. 1 can go straight in. 3, it can't go straight into the skin so easy. And it's like if you snowshoes, for example, if you walk on snow with stilts, you're gonna go straight through the snow. But if you walk on snow with tennis racket snowshoes, you'll stay on the top of the snow. So the theory is the same with working on skin. If you have more needles, it doesn't penetrate the skin so much. So next time you're working on mature skin, give that a go. Either a thicker needle for speed, or you can pull out a 3 round liner, a 7 mag, or a 4 or 5 flat, and give that a go on your mature skin clients. And I think you'll be surprised at how much easier it is to implant the pigment into the skin rather than a thinner 1 round liner, 0.25 or less. Hope you found that little nugget of info helpful. If you want more help understanding needles across all the different skin types, normal, sensitive, dry, etc., All that we cover in the Hyperrealism Browse Mastery program, plus much, much more info. So if you want to join our group, there'll be a link in the description below. Click on that, request to join, and yeah, we'll chat soon.